Severe weather is front and center tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, so we're going to get right to it. And the Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, in southwest Suffolk County on Long Island. They serve the entire New York, New Jersey, Connecticut tri-state area. Mulch, topsoil, sand, and come wintertime, they'll have salt. And make sure you got all your hurricane stuff prepared just in case we get a tropical storm or hurricane, because we're still got a long way to go with regards to hurricane season. 631-756-1125. Nowhere can you find better prices. Trust me, I've looked. And the website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
And the Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather station, especially on a day like today. It comes in handy. And join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. It is easy to install. You can monitor it straight from your mobile device. And the link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. And be sure to use the coupon code I want a weather station for this or any purchase that you make, because they have other fabulous electronics and gadgets in weather fashion. And if you do, what do they get, Joe?
They get 10% off, Johnny.
Yes, they do. Oh, this was it's probably one of the stronger cold fronts that we've seen, Joe, all spring and summer. I lost count of how many severe thunderstorm warnings that I saw up and down the East Coast, and some of these cells were, and they still are, pretty impressive. And we have breaking news here because we have a new severe thunderstorm watch that is up.
Right. In fact, I kiddingly, I call this the Chile in relationship to the country Chile. If you know your geography, Chile is a long, skinny country along the west coast of South America. Well, this particular thunderstorm watch,
I'll put the watch box up on the screen so everybody can see.
It runs from the general vicinity of Glens Falls, New York, straight south down the Hudson River to the area around New York City. And I call it the Chile watch because it's a skinny watch. It seems to pick up where the broad tornado watch or watches leave off to the west across New Jersey and Pennsylvania. I guess the Storm Prediction Center figures that just in case some of these storms that may generate tornadic activity still hang on and still have decent strength, that it might be worthwhile to continue further east. As you can see, Joe has the watch up on the screen there, and you can see why it's compared to these huge tornado watch box areas to the west. This is a relatively skinny watch, and it encompasses, again, New York City, the parts of the lower Hudson Valley, all the way up to, and this is weird too, because if you drew the watch box,
I'll bring the watch box up on the screen.
You could see that it's like the aviation box there. You see that there. So, I remember when I was working at a private weather forecasting service, any county or any area inside the box would be included. But as you can see, that's not necessarily the case. In the northern end or the northeastern end of the box, there are counties, I guess, just to the north of Albany, that are not officially in the severe thunderstorm watch area. And yet there's a skinny area just outside to the north and west of the box, which is, including a couple of counties. So it's not absolute, the box is. I guess it's based upon the forecaster's criteria or a decision as to who would be in the box. Right? But I mean, we always used to say places in and near the box area. So certainly if you're near that box, you certainly would deserve to be on guard for possible severe weather this evening. And in fact, this watch runs all the way to the after midnight hours, till 1 a.m. Tuesday morning. So there you go. We've got a busy evening ahead of us. And again, some of these storms already showing some significant activity, especially to the west and to the south of New York City, Joe.
When you had, back in the day when we had to draw these things by hand, because the map with it on wouldn't come out off the fax machine for for like an hour or more. So they'd give you the plots, and they would say that the watch box extends from 60 miles east northeast of, and then they would always pick the most obscure place uh, as the defining areas of the box, and you sit around. It takes you like 30 minutes to find, these obscure towns. Now, of course, that problem is long gone, but it would just take you forever to plot the darn watch box up. But yeah, this is probably one of the odder severe thunderstorm watches in terms of the shape of it that I've seen. But you know what? They've gotten really good at nailing these boxes fairly well in terms of the extent of the thunderstorm activity. By the way, this does include New York City and the northeastern counties of New Jersey. The tornado watch has the northwestern counties of New Jersey. And these are some of the warnings that are all the blue areas you see here are the counties that are right now currently under warnings. And that's just about all the Jersey counties south of 78, all the counties in southeastern Pennsylvania, northward to at least north of Allentown. Actually goes a little bit further north than that. The state of Delaware, all around the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area with regards to warnings. And I'm going to bring the wide shot of the radar here first, and then Joe's going to start going around on the local radars because we still have. Now, the line has split. You've got the area that's running from northern New York, and you can see the thunderstorms. It looks like a bow here that's moved into western New Jersey. It looks like it's moving into Ocean County at the moment. And the warnings have now extended into Monmouth and Ocean counties there. And then it kind of bows back down across Delaware. Storms went through Washington, D.C., Baltimore, but it looks like there's some cells on the backside. And by the way, did you notice this? There's another line of storms that has developed in western New York and western Pennsylvania. It's like this skinny line that's back there that goes all the way down through southern Ohio. I wasn't expecting that to happen. And then you get this split in Virginia. Southeast Virginia right now is not doing much of anything, and then it goes all over. Then they come back again when you get into North Carolina. It just looks like some storms went through Raleigh, Durham, and I mean there must be a dozen or more severe thunderstorm warnings that extend from there southwestward through central Georgia. I had warnings up here in North Georgia. These storms came through here around 3:30 this afternoon, and actually I'm still in that area of rain that's up in the northern part of the state that's just beginning to pull out. So why don't we'll go to Mr. Rayo, who will have the local radars, and I'm not sure which one he's starting with. You're starting with the Fort Dix radar.
Well, we're starting with the Philadelphia / Wrightstown, New Jersey, and that bow line that you mentioned, Joe, shows up beautifully on this particular radar. Look at how, and whenever you see this, this segment here, this bow segment, that usually indicates at least very strong to possibly damaging wind conditions. Don't confuse this with a hook echo, which sometimes reveals the presence of a tornado. But this line is loaded for bear. Now, notice also that when you first see it emerge into view from the southeastern part of Pennsylvania and northernmost sections or northeastern sections of Maryland, the line or the area is a deep shade of red. Now that is becoming a lighter shade, more like orange yellow, which may indicate that the thunderstorm activity is in itself beginning to weaken some. But nonetheless, this is a very significant area of showers and storms, which is moving at a fairly good clip. And it looks like over the next hour or so, we're going to be seeing much of central New Jersey and southern and central New Jersey affected by this line. Again, it's not maybe as potent as it was an hour or so or two ago, but it's still, again, a very significant area to watch in terms of active and adverse weather with thunderstorms. Now, that is from, again, the Wrightstown and Philadelphia radar. Let's check out.
While you're switching, just mentioning South Jersey, we have a severe thunderstorm warning that's up right now in Atlantic, Burlington, Camden, Gloucester, Hunterdon, Mercer, Middlesex, Monmouth, Ocean, Somerset, and then on the Pennsylvania side, We have it up in Bucks County. Just kind of scrolling through here with some of these mornings. Are you going to the New York radar?
I'm at the New York radar right now. Well,
Okay,
actually, the Upton
the
radar.
Upton radar. I just wanted to get. There's one more here. Also, severe thunderstorm warning for Warren, Carbon, Lehigh, Monroe counties in, well, Warren County in New Jersey and Carbon, Lehigh, Monroe, and Northampton in Pennsylvania.
And considering that Upton is a fairly good distance from southern New Jersey, the fact that the radar is picking up and showing very well, quite well, in fact, the bow segment, which I just pointed out in and around Philadelphia. I mean, it's not diffuse. It shows up at a very well-defined, sharp curve, if you will, moving into the central part of and southern parts of New Jersey. And again, that's from the Upton radar, which is way over here, about I guess maybe a couple of hundred, well, not a couple of hundred, about 150 miles or so away. You can see that New York City and the lower Hudson Valley at the moment is free and clear of any kind of activity. But still, we're watching this zone here moving in from eastern Pennsylvania. In fact, right along on the final frames of the loop, eastern Pennsylvania and western New Jersey. And this entire area is going to have to continue eastward. And that is probably why the Storm Prediction Center has placed this area right here in a severe thunderstorm watch, because they're looking at this and saying, well, this is rather potent. If it holds together, it could bring some significant rain, some strong gusty winds. So they've mentioned that, and they're covered now until 1 o'clock in the morning. By 1 a.m., this area will probably be not long gone, but pretty well over to the east. I don't think they're going to be, putting up any more watch boxes in, let's say, Connecticut or, let's say, eastern Long Island, mainly because the winds are from the south. That ocean air is going to probably diminish the strength of any of these strong storms. But still, that doesn't mean that if you live in Connecticut or eastern Long Island, you're not going to see, probably later on this evening or later tonight, that you're not going to see any kind of activity. You'll probably be seeing a few bursts of possible heavy rain, maybe a strong wind gust or two. But again, the further west you are, away from the influence of that southerly ocean or maritime flow, the more likely that these storms are going to be rather potent, rather nasty. So let's continue here. Let's go further back, let's say south and west into, let's say around the Washington, D.C. area.
Okay, go ahead.
There's that bow again, which moved from north central Maryland very quickly. I might add into the Philadelphia, northern Delaware area, southeastern PA area, and there's a little line of activity, some showers and storms. I heard that actually, Joe, that parts of the federal government sent their workers home early today in lieu of the threat of possible severe weather, maybe even tornadic weather in and around the D.C. area. And I mentioned to you off air that before we got started here, that I have a cousin who lives in Manassas, Virginia. And when I saw that they had upgraded from enhanced to moderate threat of severe weather, I said, "My goodness, I better tell my cousin Veronica about this and let her know that if her phone suddenly lights up with a warning, don't take it lightly. That it could mean some very nasty conditions for her." But notice, if you will, and we were talking about this off air too, is that the area down here across Virginia sort of split in two. That one area moved up to the north, and the other area is passing off to the south toward Norfolk, Virginia. But in between, in places like in Lynchburg, for example, Richmond, that most of this area, most of the zone, not seeing very much at all, just maybe a couple of spot showers, but the activity is really not as dynamic as the warnings and advisories had suggested earlier on in the day.
Go to the Albany radar, because what's interesting about the Albany radar, Joe, is the fact that you mentioned earlier about the odd shape of the box, and then they had those handful of counties that are actually literally sitting outside the box, but they're part of the severe thunderstorm watch. One of those counties is Lewis County. and they have a tornado warning up. So I guess that's why they have the box shaped the way they do.
Yeah.
They have a tornado warning up there. It's got another half an hour to go. That's a long time. Severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado near Redfield, New York, or 14 miles north of Camden, moving northeast at 20 miles per hour. So
And here's Utica, Rome, right here.
yeah, you could actually, I think I see that little red echo there that pops up there, up in north central New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I have to say SPC did a really good job when you look at where they lined up the slight risk, and where, and the moderate and the enhanced risk and the moderate risk, and where all the tornado watches, because there were at least at one point today there were half a dozen tornado watches up all at the same time. They all lined up almost perfectly inside the risk zones that they drew. So kudos to them for a job well done. And they do a great job 99% of the time anyway.
Next time we have Bill Goodman on, I have to remember this. Ask him this question. Yeah, the Storm Prediction Center issues the box, the area or the zone where the thunderstorm activity is expected to be. But does the Storm Prediction Center also outline the specific counties, or do they leave it up to?
No, they do the count. SPC does the counties, because if you go on the shot that I showed you before with showing the box, if you scroll down, it gives you all the counties that are involved. So, for example, in that skinny box that you showed up for the eastern part of New York State down into northeast New Jersey, it lists here New Jersey counties included Bergen, Passaic, Essex, Union, and Hudson. In New York, it was Albany, Dutchess, Herkimer, Manhattan, Queens, which is New York County, is Manhattan, Queens, Rockland, Ulster, Bronx, Fulton, Kings, Orange, Rensselaer, Schenectady, Westchester, Columbia, Greene, Putnam, Montgomery, Richmond, and Scolari County. Actually, Lewis County is outside this box zone. I don't quite, because that's up in that's way up in north central New York. So, but that's not that far from some of the counties that they outlined there. So yeah,
that's what I pointed out, is the fact that in some cases there are counties inside the box that are not included in the watch, but there was a small area outside to the northwest of the box where there were counties that were included in the watch area, although they were not, again, specifically inside of the watch box. Of course, it's kind of difficult if you're going to be drawing rhomboids or parallelograms or rectangles to include a bunch of counties that might not actually fit within the box, so to speak. But you can still, and SPC apparently has done so, included those in the watch area, even though they're not, officially within the zone, the box zone.
We've got busy radars in the southeast, Mr. Rayo. So why don't we check out what's going on in North and South Carolina and in Georgia? Because I'm going to try to count these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold on, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It looks like they got about 12 or 13 severe thunderstorm warnings that are ongoing at the moment, including some big cells that are just east of Raleigh-Durham.
Well, this first off is centered on Columbia, South Carolina. And indeed, you can see that there isn't a lot of action. Notice this line here, which as it moves south and east, kind of breaks up a bit. But there's still a fair amount of activity. It's kind of funny. It approaches Columbia, kind of breaks up, and then a new area kind of reforms to the south and east of Columbia down here over southeastern South Carolina. But you're absolutely right. There is a lot of activity that's going on down across the Carolinas, against South Carolina. Let's check out Raleigh-Durham, or at least here we go, Raleigh-Durham or Clayton, North Carolina. And you can see here, Raleigh-Durham is right about here. And right about this moment in time, if you lived in the Raleigh-Durham area, you're getting hammered by a rather significant squall line that's moving on in and through. Notice again, and I pointed this out earlier on the bow line that was approaching and moving through Philadelphia. That on the initial frames, the intensity of the reds are quite strong, but they seem to be not necessarily fading, but the colors seem to be getting less red, less strong, and more of a trend toward reddish orange, which indicates, yeah, they're still rather potent, but they're certainly not as strong as what they were maybe an hour or two ago. Of course, we're also approaching sunset, so that may also have something to do with it, the atmosphere beginning to cool a little bit. Let's go to northern Georgia and see if anything affected Mr. Joe
Yes, it
today.
did.
And here you go. Now you're up here, right?
Yeah,
About
just
that area.
a little bit west of there.
So you did have some activity, but nothing like the nastiness that
Well,
came on
your
through.
loop doesn't go back far enough because the storms came through here at like 3 o'clock.
Oh well,
So
we could fix that. We could fix that very easily. Let's go to 8 hours and now go back to Georgia and let's see what may have affected. See, this is before all the mayhem occurred. For
you see that line there that just comes
see
in the
that right
picture.
there.
That's what I got into.
That must have been fun.
Well, it got windy and we had some heavy rain, but I've had a couple of thunderstorms here that have been worse. But I don't know what happened around me because just as an example, the other day uh, there were some big storms that came down from the North Carolina state line, and I have friends that live there, and they got absolutely hammered 2 to 2.5 inches of rain and wind and everything else, and I barely got 15 hundredths by the time, and I'm only 20 miles south of them. So the storm what happened was the storm wound up reforming east, and then a bunch of them reformed to the west, and I just sort of was sitting in between the two. But this line I actually got, but I've had worse since I've been here.
Did the electricity blink?
Yes, it did. I lost power a couple of times for about 5 seconds. And we do have a bunch of severe thunderstorm warnings up in South Georgia at the moment, including Bullock, Jenkins, and Screven counties under a severe thunderstorm warning at the moment. I'm just trying to run through here what we got. There's some new severe thunderstorm warnings that are up now also in South Carolina for Berkeley, 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 Collecton, Dorchester, and Hampton counties. That I know. Include also in Darlington, Dillon, Florence, and Marlborough counties in South Carolina. In North Carolina, Cumberland and Sampson counties. Also, Bladen, Columbus, Robeson, Dillon, Horry, Horry, Marion, and Marlborough counties. Some of those are in South Carolina. And in Georgia, I said Bullock, Jenkins, and Screven. And for another 20 minutes in Baldwin, Jones, Twiggs, Washington, and Wilkinson counties in the great state of Georgia. And I'm just kind of checking out to see if there's anything left. There's there's just so many of them tonight. It's hard to keep track. But it looks like the tornado warnings, at least, those seem to have just kind of calmed down a bit. There were more of them earlier today. I saw at least, sometimes they come and go so quickly, so that if you're not looking at the radar at the right time, and then if you look at it and then don't look at it for 20 or 30 minutes, it could be a tornado warning that popped up in between and then disappeared after about 5 minutes or so. But I saw 3 different tornado warnings, one in Northeast PA, west of I-81, and then 2 others in Southeast PA that came with that area that went through Philadelphia. So this is definitely has been a very active kind of day. I guess you can unshare unless you got something else you want to show.
No, I'm looking here. I just changed to Morehead City in North Carolina, and as you can see, approaching the coastal plain. This, of course, is the Outer Banks of North Carolina, Cape Hatteras, and here's this next squall line, which looks like it's going to hold together, although probably diminish as it approaches the coast. But it looks like this is going to hold together enough so that the folks here along the coast will be getting their fair share of showery weather in the Carolinas during the next couple of hours. And now I will unshare.
All right, very good. And as you unshare, I am going to switch over back to SPC, and we'll take a look at their really busy map that they have up tonight. Let me just get it centered so everybody can see. We still have a few working tornado watches up. Still have the box that's up in Virginia and in points north and east. The box that is up in eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and extends northward into upstate New York. And then, of course, the really skinny, severe thunderstorm watch that's up for areas in the eastern part of New York State, down the Hudson to New York City and northeast New Jersey. We have a new severe thunderstorm watch that is up now for coastal South Carolina. And also, it looks like they modified the box a little bit for eastern North Carolina, but it's still there. But you can see in the blue, we've got the severe thunderstorm watches that are up now in the southeast. So it seems like the tornado risk there has diminished, but it's still enough that they've got the severe thunderstorm watch up. And also, not to leave the folks in Colorado out, much of the eastern part of that state and western Kansas and into western Nebraska right now are got two working severe thunderstorm watches there, and they still, they haven't updated the risk. The risk areas, but it does give me an opportunity to just give a little bit of. It's not so much a rant as it is just just an observation here. The SPC's job is to delineate areas of risk and measure sort of the magnitude of that risk. Okay, uh, I get all I get all the time people, and you probably get it too. You put the risk of thunderstorms in the forecast, and inevitably, I may have just okay. Here we go. Just briefly, we took a little internet here. You put in the forecast for the chance of thunderstorms, and somehow, in some people's minds, it translates to it's going to rain all day long, thunderstorms all day long, and forecasts in the summer season certainly are really specific. And most of the time, when there's thunderstorms in the forecast, they're going to be late afternoon and evening thunderstorms as opposed to being earlier in the day. But when they're earlier in the day or in the overnight period, the forecaster usually says so. So you need to pay attention to not just what he says in terms of the actual weather that's going on, but when it's going to happen. The other thing is, then I get the person. I got somebody from in coastal Georgia who posted a message saying, just criticizing weather people in general, that quote, they never get it right, unquote. Okay, that statement in and of itself is a stupid statement because no one is always wrong and no one is always right. Okay. It's called human beings and having a certain amount of imperfections. Of course, Joe and I are excluded from that list. However, my point is, have an understanding about the fact that in the summertime there is a certain amount of variability when thunderstorms are forecasted. That when you look at what SPC does, they're not directing it to your zip code and only your zip code. If you notice where the risk is tonight, it covers I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of square miles from Alabama all the way up into northern New York, and then they go inside and delineate the level of risk in that entire area. That takes a lot of work and a lot of mind power. So I think folks, that you want those of you who I'm sure they're just a precious few because you have anger in your life that you feel you need to criticize everybody else. Give it a break, okay? Give it a break, and take your anger and direct it elsewhere. Okay, end of rant. So you see where the risk areas are tonight. We've got the slight risk with what's going on in the Western Plains. and also in parts of West Texas. The Storm Prediction Center for tomorrow is still indicating a small area of marginal risk for southern and southeastern New England, as well as the eastern half of Long Island, and general thunderstorms possible back into western New Jersey. This is not going to be anything like today, okay? Not anywhere close to what's happened today. And then we have a slight risk from South Georgia west across the lower parts of Alabama and Mississippi, and also a slight to an enhanced risk back into northwestern Kansas and even in north central Kansas, much of central and western Nebraska, and a small area of enhanced risk in northeastern Colorado, and kind of edges into parts of Nebraska and Kansas there, just small parts. And day 3, which is Wednesday into Thursday, we have a developing area of marginal slight risk in parts of the middle Mississippi Valley, parts of the Missouri River Valley, and those extend into Tennessee, and the marginal risk goes down into Georgia. I don't think they had anything in their long range. We do have 2 weather fronts to deal with later this week, but we're not seeing anything showing up in the long range. So at least for now, we don't have to look at the long range forecast and say, oh my God, SPC's got something there. So we have to worry about it. Latest satellite loop, which I'm going to refresh here so we can take a look at I love this thing with the lightning strikes because at least you get to look. Sometimes the radars can be a little bit deceptive. But when you look, at least from the standpoint of the lightning strikes, it gives you an idea of the health of the line. And it's kind of starting to maybe. It looks like, Joe, it might have peaked out when we started the show, and
Right.
there's still quite a few lightning strikes going on, but they're just a little bit less now as they move across New Jersey. And then you got what looks like a really big cell sitting in Chesapeake Bay, east of Washington D.C. It's kind of merging with the other cells that are just to the west there. So that still seems to be hanging on. And you can see also the cells down. Then you see the way the break is in southeast Virginia. And then you've got the cells again. These seem to be holding up a bit. Although even here in North Carolina, just in the last few frames, it looks like they've just, ever so slightly weakened there as they're moving eastward. And on the lower left, you can just sort of pick out what's going on in South Carolina. And here's on the wider view. You see the split in the lines, the southern part, the northern part, and on they go. Yeah, that skinny watch box was probably a good idea just to be safe.
It seems to be the lining up with the area of marginal risk.
Yes.
That's and all of the heavy activity, the slight, the enhanced, and especially the moderate activity. That's in line with the tornado watch areas. And I guess the SPC folks said, "All right, well, let's the next box over, the next box adjacent to the tornado watch boxes. Let's make that just he says, a severe thunderstorm watch, because again, as we just saw on that satellite loop from GOES 16, the activity is holding together, but it's also diminishing some in potency as it heads eastward. And again, that's probably due to the southerly winds, the maritime airflow, and we just know that thunderstorms do not like maritime air. They start weakening very quickly when they start interacting with that.
The Joe and Joe Weather Show weather time is 8:05 Eastern. So if you are watching this on a replay, clearly what you're seeing on satellites and radars are dated, as are the watches and some of the warnings that we mentioned earlier. So this is your reminder that to check to see what's going on in real time with weather in your particular zip code. We recommend that you go to weather.gov and go to your local National Weather Service forecast office to get the latest updated information. Just want to put that out there. I do want to touch on something that you mentioned yesterday, and for the folks in the great state of Vermont, this is probably not something you want to see, but the WPC, Joe, has indicated for tomorrow, because much of the action tomorrow is going to be in New England, and you know a lot of that maybe is going to be convective. They have put up a moderate risk of flash flooding for much of the state of Vermont, except the extreme south, which is just under a slight risk, and a moderate risk for much of New Hampshire, except the extreme south, which also, again, under a slight risk, and a small portion of northeastern New York. And that moderate risk goes well up through western Maine. So bear that in mind. I mean, this area has been hit so hard this late spring and summer with uh, tremendous amounts of rain in feet. So the last thing that they need is to have to deal with another round of heavy rains and flash flooding. But such is the way it is. This is the year that northern New England seems to be in the jackpot zone for heavy rain. So WPC is alerting you to that fact for tomorrow.
Well, that's not this weekend, but next weekend is the annual Stella Fane Convention in Springfield, Vermont, where people can camp out under the stars. If you don't care to camp out, you can always get a room in one of the hotels or motels in the vicinity. Our friend Dennis Cassia is a member of the club that puts this together every year. Dennis will be going up with his wife Kim a week from tomorrow to get the big field and the area in shape, or try to get it in shape for maybe upwards to over 1,000 people that are going to be showing up for this convention. And as I said, as you said too, Joe, I mean, they have really been getting beat. I said yesterday, getting beat like the proverbial piñata with all of these heavy rains. And the roads in the immediate vicinity of Stellafane are not really the best. They're dirt roads. They're kind of ruddy, even when it's nice and dry. So it may be a bit of a task to get them in shape for the big convention again a week from this Sunday, a week from this weekend. Not this weekend, but the following weekend. And I have kind of a special interest because, I heard that a guy by the name of Rayo is going to be giving the keynote speech.
That old fossil?
Yeah, that old fossil. So,
Dale, I'm going to, please, if I butcher your name, I'm sorry, but I'm going to give it a try. Dale Majuki says, just a quick update. A tornado continues to rip through upstate New York. It's showing up better on the velocity on the velocity part of the radar. I assume, Dale, that's the Lewis. That's up in Lewis, where they have the warning up in Lewis County. I'm just so if it's not, if you would post again and correct me, it would be great. Also, just want to acknowledge Leon Probitsky hitting the super chat tip jar tonight. Thank you, Leon. We've got 63 likes so far. Thank you for those of you who've hit the like button. Let's see if we can take it over 100 tonight. It'd be really nice. And just going back to the potential for some rain in northeastern New York and up into Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, WPC is forecasting. Now, this is a 7-day forecast, and we do have other weather events going on. But they are forecasting anywhere from 1.5 inches to some areas of 2 to 3 inches, which, of course, in these convective situations, locally, it would be double those amounts. And Dale says, yes, that's the one in Lewis County. We'll try to come back to it when we're done here. And also, looking at some heavier rains of 1.5 inches plus in parts of the Tennessee Valley, extending back over into Missouri. Much of pretty much everybody east of the Rockies, or east of the Plains at least, at least 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch of rain over the next 7 days. I'm going to just jump over to my big radar here and see if that tornado warning. You look up in upstate New York on this, you can see it there. In north central New York. It looks like it's probably west of, not too far from Pulaski. But that warning is still sitting there. And I commented earlier, I said earlier that the warning had still a ways to go in terms of time, which is pretty unusual. And now I just gave it a refresh here. It looks like the tornado warning is now over. It's done, or maybe they canceled it. And they did have quickly a severe thunderstorm warning for that same zone, and then that disappeared. Oh no, that that last frame on the radar, for some reason, all the warnings have disappeared. So that warning is probably uh, still up. So very, very certainly, active up there in upstate New York, and this was one area that was way up at the top of their risk zone. So again, this was a very good job that SBC did. Let's see, Nikki,
I think it's
Nikki Cupcake.
Nikki and Nikki Cupcake.
Thank you, Nikki and Nikki Cupcake, for hitting the super chat tip jar tonight. Most appreciated, as always. Thank you. And Dale says another meteorologist who's been streaming on YouTube has been watching the debris field that was left by this particular tornado. Oh, it's just been a pretty awful day. This is where I get mad, Joe, with people who just, when they say things like, uh, uh, they're always wrong. They never get it right, that kind of thing. It just really hacks me off, because these folks work really hard to try to nail something down that potentially could cost someone their life if they are caught in a severe thunderstorm or in a tornado. So really, those kind of criticisms to me are just totally unjustified.
And I'm not going to mention names, but where you were working in the 1980s, and you were working as a bona fide meteorologist, a forecaster who tried to stress all of the situations if they were very, very serious. And your colleague at that time, you were doing mornings, your colleague at the time, who was on in the afternoon and evenings at this particular television station, got the job probably because his degree was in jocularity. And there was a period during the early 1990s on Long Island where we had very, very serious storms. The people out east, for example, who had homes on stilts, who were seeing their homes collapse into the sea because of the extreme tides and winds, because of the big nor'easters we were getting. And it seemed to me that every time they threw it to the guy with the jocularity, that he couldn't make any jokes. He, in fact, didn't know what to do, because that wasn't his forte. That he liked to just simply make a joke out about the weather. That's probably why a lot of people think the weather forecasters don't know anything, or not, they have no knowledge, because of a proliferation of people like that, as opposed to people like you or like me, who went to college, got the degree, got the AMS or NWA seals to prove that we know what we're talking about, as opposed to those who really are nothing more than just either comedians or actors or whatever, or who just look good in front of the camera and have and get their forecast on a script from a weather service, because they really don't know how to look into the camera and just talk and give you a valid explanation as to what's happening at a moment's notice.
Well, those days are gone now.
Those days are gone, my friends. We thought they'd never end.
Yes, exactly.
They waited until they waited until after we were forced into retirement before they finally said, "Okay, let's."
Exactly. Yep. All right, let's look at the GFS with this front. Actually, the GFS did a really good job overall, although on tonight's map, you can see they don't have a whole lot showing up in North and South Carolina into Georgia, and the radar says otherwise. But at least as we went through the day, this model certainly did a good job with the northern part of this line. And this lifts out, and of course tomorrow the low pressure that's up at north of the St. Lawrence River is going to still be spinning there, and we still have the upper trough to get through. And while the model doesn't really pick up on it, there is risk that there could be a scattered shower or thunderstorm, and again, the chance that maybe there's an isolated severe thunderstorm possibility in southeastern New England. And you can also see the rain that's being indicated tonight up in Vermont, New Hampshire, and on up into Maine, and also during tomorrow afternoon. That pulls out. We should have some decent weather on Wednesday, and maybe even a little bit of a humidity break. And then Thursday, we've got another system that's coming in with the. Now, I haven't quite figured this one out, because it looks like another warm front, cold front kind of thing. but it times out where much of the rain with this area of rain Thursday morning comes through during the morning hours. This is Thursday morning at 8 a.m. and it's raining throughout much of Pennsylvania, Ohio, eastern Ohio, and even in western Ohio, and on up into western New York. And then, of course, by 2 o'clock, it's all over the place in New York State, down to Long Island and southeastern New England. But then the low is up in Massachusetts, so whatever this is, be it a warm front, cold front combo, I'm not sure whether this is going to warrant any kind of severe weather risk or not, so we'll see what SPC does with this. And then it looks like it dries out for Friday and Saturday, and then for the first part of Saturday, but there's another front that approaches late in the day on Saturday with some showers and thunderstorms, and this one has some storms going up and down the coast. I don't think it's as vigorous as what we just went through. And then we dry out after that. And guess what? Early next week, along about Monday, there's another cold front that comes through with some showers and storms, followed by what looks like a decent high that builds in behind it for Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. I just want to take a look at the dew points just to see what they're doing with the dew points. All right, well, that's not too shabby. Let's roll back. So here we go for Tuesday. So here's our system for today. And the dew points are still a little on the high side in New England. They come down a bit everywhere else. And you can see there's 50 dew points, Pennsylvania points west, and they sort of come in for Tuesday night and Wednesday. It's not much of a dry air mass, but it's enough to bring the dew points down into the 50s on Wednesday into Wednesday night and early Thursday. They start to come up. By midday Thursday, we got dew points in the mid and upper 60s. And then that front goes by, and then we get some. Well, look at these dew points on Friday in the 40s, dropping down Friday afternoon, if that's real, down to about New York City with 50 dew points further south. And that sticks around until later Saturday when you start to see the humidity come up with the next cold front. And then they come back down a little bit for Sunday. And then they come down in a bigger way after another front next Monday, and you can see there's a lot of, fair amount of dry air that moves into the Northeast and Great Lakes. So not much change in the pattern over the next 10 days.
And it's nice. I mean, it does not look like we're going to be into any kind of extreme heat. Does not look like we're going to have any protracted spell of high humidity or oppressive humidity. And it doesn't look like we're going to be looking at any kind of, at least, in the immediate future, any kind of major rainfall amounts, save for what may be coming toward Vermont and New Hampshire for tomorrow. But overall, I mean, you take what you get. That's all we can do. And that looks like what the story is going to be for much of this week and for a good part of next week as well.
Now, I'm just looking here on the long range on this run. I mean, these short waves, this one tonight, of course, was was really vigorous. Well, that lifts out, and then, of course, we've got another one that comes for Thursday, and then another one that approaches on Saturday. They don't look. The one next Monday looks kind of interesting, with a low cutting off east of Lake Huron. Doesn't look that much different than what we went through now. And then after that lifts out, there's a more vigorous upper low that moves down out of Canada and over western parts of Hudson Bay. This run's different, Joe, because I'm just knowing on this particular run, the last few runs of the models, the GFS in particular, wants to pull all the westerlies up into Canada for a little while in the latter part of the forecast period. This particular run, however, doesn't do that. So, we'll see if the next run goes back to what it's been doing. This one wants to keep troughing in the east. I want to just really quickly mention a couple of things with respect to the tropics. First off, now this is a little bit out in the long range, but the European today does show toward the end of the forecast period. And what's notable here is the fact that
is that operational? Or
this is the operational now. The operationals have been going against the ensembles, which have, for the last week and a half, kept showing hurricanes developing after day 10. and none of them have gone anywhere inside the 10-day time frame. But the European does show two vigorous tropical waves coming out. One comes out uh, maybe a week from tomorrow, and then a second one comes out behind it, and it does have two identifiable systems here 10 days from now. So we'll see if this is just the start of a new trend of the models, and maybe an indication that the tropics are going to start to get a little more active for the second half of the month of August. But this is the first time that the European has shown something. So it's got I have one eyebrow raised, not two. I have one eyebrow raised.
Yeah.
Okay, just so you know. And the other thing is, which I find somewhat comical, we're going to take a look at Hurricane Dora.
Oh yeah.
And what's funny about this one, Joe, is the fact that it seems that the forecasters have finally thrown in the towel in trying to weaken this thing from the major hurricane status. They had it where it was supposed to start weakening 2 days ago, and that hasn't happened. And now they keep it a major hurricane into early Thursday.
Look at that string of M's.
Yes, passing well south of the Hawaiian Islands. Now they've got high wind warnings up for all of the Hawaiian Islands, talking about gusts of 40 to 40 miles an hour or more. So the surfers are going to love this because they've got high surf advisories and all the rest of it. This is going to be kicking up waves for the Hawaiian Islands for days. But in terms of weather out of this is passing way south by almost more than 450 miles to the south of the Big Island. So this is not going to be a weather producer from the standpoint of rain and any kind of direct impact with tropical storm force or hurricane force winds. But the gradient will be tight enough up there that they'll probably blow away, for a few days until it gets well out to the east, and still on course, Mr. Rayo, to perhaps cross the international date line on Saturday.
Isn't that amazing? That really is amazing. And that having been said, the forecast map that you see there, the forecasters for this storm are now the Central Pacific Hurricane Center in Honolulu. The folks over in Miami, I guess yesterday, handed it off to Honolulu and said, "Here, it's all yours. We're done."
Yes, and you can see it on the satellite. The eye is you got to look close. It's still there. Might be cloud filled a bit, but it still has a very good looking presentation on the satellite view as it continues to move along to the west. It's what's known as an annular hurricane, not an annual hurricane, an annular hurricane. Which, if you look at the signature on the satellite of this hurricane, it's almost perfectly symmetrical. And annular hurricanes have the characteristics of being stronger for longer, and also when you think it's in an environment where it shouldn't be strengthening, somehow it does. Or if you think it's going in an environment where it should be weakening, it doesn't. Okay, so it's a very it's a very interesting. We get them from time to time. We get them in the Atlantic as well. So it does happen
It's very
on the
interesting.
Atlantic side.
It's very unusual that here's a storm that actually was off of the coast of Mexico that headed westward, and 9 times out of 10, or maybe I should even say 99 times out of 100. When those storm systems head west, they head into cooler waters, unfavorable upper air environments, and they just get torn apart or dissipate, and they're long gone by the time they come anywhere near Hawaii. To see a storm like this right now, if you showed me this right now, this an image or a photograph of Dora, I would say, oh well, of course Dora must have formed out in the middle of the Central Pacific, because that's the only way you can get a storm like this is those storms that occasionally do form out there. No, this thing has come all the way from Mexico, south of the Hawaiian Islands over the next couple of days, and when it crosses the international date line, Joe, it will go. I mean, it'll be the same storm. It just will have a different name. It will become not Hurricane Dora, but it'll be Typhoon Dora as it crosses over the international date line and on into the Western Pacific. It's an amazing storm, an amazingly long track, and an amazingly long-lasting system. Thankfully, it's not apparently going to bother anybody in the foreseeable future except for the fish. But this is going to be one that's going to go into the annals of the textbooks as one that's going to be remembered long as a storm that took a long track, a long path, maintained its strength for a very long time, and pretty amazing system.
Yes, Joe, would you unshare and share again, please?
Oh well.
So we can get rid of the white screen.
Oh well. Okay. I will share. Okay. And now I will unshare.
All right, now let me see if I can fix it on my end. I don't know why it does this. It's very bizarre. But it's definitely a Zoom issue. All right, hold on. Nope, that didn't work. There you go. Okay. Nice to have you back.
Ah.
All right, we've got 87 likes. We're 13 short of 100, so let's try to get to 100, please. And while we're doing that, let's run through Briller Jeopardy, because I have one. And before we do that, there is something I do want to show you. I promised Izzy D I would show this. Okay, so just let me go back and bring this up on the screen, which will take me just a moment here. And Izzy was down in Miami, and he got a nice picture here. He was on the beach, and if you look, looks like a little probe is coming down from the clouds. That is a water spout that is forming and coming down.
Wow.
That's a pretty cool picture, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Again, this was off the beach in Miami, where they used to do the Jackie Gleason show.
Yeah. From the sun and fun capital of the world, Miami Beach.
Yes. All right, let's do Briller Jeopardy. And we only got 4 likes to go. By the way, while I'm getting Briller Jeopardy, this is a good reminder for those of you who are watching the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Thank you and welcome to any new folks that are watching. And of course, a big thank you to everybody on the chat board, because the chat board folks are on here every night on a regular basis, and we appreciate them being part of our regular audience. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn the notifications on, because the Joe and Joe Weather Show is on Monday through Thursday at 7:35 and Sundays at 11 a.m. And sometimes we'll pop on a Friday or a Saturday if there's a storm going on. And of course, if you do like the show, hit the like button. Thank you. Okay, are you ready? We're going to talk about the most 90-degree days in the month of August for these cities. Are you ready? Again, 90-degree days for the month of August. And the first city, Joe, is Atlantic City. What is the record for the most number of days above 90 for Atlantic City in the month of August?
In the month of August? I'm going to say, I'll say 12.
You'll say 12. And Steve LaPointe says 17. Helen Bertona says 5. Christina Pedia said 10. Chuck Cardillo says 13. Frank Scalera has 12. Christopher Alley says 15. David Carter, 17. Rich Rothmansky, 16. Shrubby says 20. Latex Dreams, 8. Maggie P, 12. A bunch of you had danced around this number. Louis Alessi has 20. William Uber is 11. Leon Probitsky, 19. Anthony Spiraccio, 13. No one said 14. 14 is the number of 90-degree days in Atlantic City. Okay, the next one is that hot spot, Newark, New Jersey. Oh. Not to be confused with Newark, Delaware. Newark, New Jersey.
Okay.
Newark, New Jersey.
I'm going to say 18.
You're going to say 18. Well, uh, Helen Bertona has hit it right off the bat. 17. See a lot of you throwing numbers, and Matthew Howe says 17. So is David Carter. So you only missed it by one, Joe. 17.
Okay.
17. All right. So the next one is right across the river. After you pay what is it, a $16 toll, and then you have to pay $23 for the congestion pricing to go to Central Park in Midtown Manhattan. Most number of 90-degree days in the month. And by the way, the Atlantic City record was in 2018. The Newark record was in 2022. Um, so we have the Central Park now, the most days above 90 in the month of August.
I'll say 12.
You'll say 12. Okay. All right. You know what? Everybody's putting up numbers, so I think it's just kind of confusing me, but I'm going to just take a guess. Let's start with Patrick Darcy at 15, Helen Bertona 16, Christina Pedia 8, Frank Scalera has 12, Rena Lawson Gasson. Rena Lawson Gasson, Joe, and Patrick Darcy both said 15. And so did Chuck Cardillo. And do you know what the answer is?
15.
15, yes. Do you know what year?
Oh, God. No, not really. I don't remember too many hot Augusts. I remember 1999 July was exceptionally hot, but I don't seem to remember an August that jumps out at me. So,
It's usually by the time you get to August, you just want the summer to go away.
right, exactly.
Well, it was back in 1980. 1980.
Oh,
Brandon Doherty just hit the super chat tip jar with the dancing chicken. Thank you, Brandon. Most appreciated for hitting super chat, and we're 2 likes shy of 100. The next city, Joe, is Philadelphia. Philadelphia. And this record, by the way, was set in just last year in 2022.
I'm going to say 19.
You're going to say 19. Okay. 19. All right. That's not the correct answer for Philadelphia. I'm waiting for the chat board folks to pile on some numbers. Brandon's been busy with storms on his weather page. I did see, Brandon. I liked your live cast. Okay, so we got a bunch of here. Matthew Howe at 17, Steve LaPointe at 14, Michael M. 1996 at 20, Christina Pedia at 17, David Carter at 17, Chuck Cardillo at 17, Maggie P. at 17, Patrick Darcy at 17, and Carol DeCara at 19, and Louis Alessi at 22, and Anonymous Source at 20. And the answer is all of you who said, and a bunch of you got it right, 17. And that was, again, set last year in 2022. The last city on the list is Trenton, New Jersey. Trenton, New Jersey.
Oh, dear. Trenton, New Jersey. Trenton, New Jersey. I'll say 15.
And you know what, Joe? It's correct. You nailed it at 15. And do you know what year it was in?
1980.
1991.
Oh, all right.
And now, finally, we'll end it with a bonus question. And we have 103 likes. Thank you for getting us over 100. What was the highest temperature ever in the month of August in the great city of Denver, Colorado?
The highest temperature in the month of August in
Yes,
Denver?
in Denver.
I'm going to say something ridiculous. I'll say 103.
And let's see. Leon says 102. Frank Scalera and Rena Lawson Gasson and Mike M. 1996
Wow.
hit it. And Rich Rothmansky 105. Joe,
Wow.
105. And would you like to guess the year?
2020.
Nope. Wrong century.
Oh, okay. 1897.
Right century. Right century. Wrong last 2 years.
Oh, I don't.
Right century, wrong decade.
I have no clue.
Well, just go back 19 years from what you said and go to 1878. It hit 105 in the
Do you
city of
realize? I mean,
Denver.
they call Denver the Mile High City, and so if they are actually at about close to 5,300 feet above sea level, or 5,280 if you want. I mean, we're talking about a city that is normally 17 or 18 degrees cooler at that altitude than at sea level. So I guess if you were at sea level on that day, the temperature would have been something
What,
like 123.
123? Nice.
Oi, oi.
All right, let's wrap it up. Just really quick, I'm just going to bring up really quick the latest radars, just the latest wide shot radar for everybody to see. So just give me a moment here, and we'll bring that up. See if there's anything. I'm sure a few things have changed since we last looked at it, and I'll just give it a quick refresh so we have the latest one. And a bit fewer in the way of severe thunderstorm warnings, although we have some in northwest New Jersey, northeastern Pennsylvania, and looks like maybe in Sullivan County or somewhere near Sullivan County there. And you can see another tornado warning up again up near Lewis County in upstate New York, so that's still going on over there. We've got some severe cells down in Chesapeake Bay in southern Delaware. Still busy on the radars in eastern North Carolina and South Carolina with one tornado warning that's now popped up north and west of where Myrtle Beach is, so that's kind of interesting. And that line extends back down into Georgia. So the storms, the presentation on the radar, Joe, is a little weaker than what it was when we first looked at it almost an hour ago. So it is trending in the right direction. We'll see how much of it holds together as it pays the tolls and then the congestion pricing fee in New York City. And the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Well, hold on, got the wrong way. There, nope, that's the wrong one too. Where is it? I'll have to go forward. Hold on. I usually have it all set to go, but I must have accidentally hit the arrow key. Brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 is the phone number, and the website is omnitruevalue.com. And I know that's your line. And Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board, and it's also on the descriptor to this video. If you're looking for a weather station, this is the one to get. It's easy to install, and you can monitor it on your mobile device. And use the coupon code I want a weather station. And if you do, what do you get, Joe?
You get 10% off from Tempest.
Yes, and that's 10% in your pocket. Which is a good thing. So, on that note, when will we be back, Mr. Rayo?
We'll be back tomorrow at 7:35 Eastern Daylight Time, and I can assure you it will be a lot less active and a lot less adverse 23 hours from now when we return on the Joe and Joe Weather Show.
And the Joe and Joe Weather Show is brought to you in living color on the NBC network, and the Joe and Joe Weather Show is a Renata Lou production. We'll see you tomorrow at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. Nighty night.
Nighty night, folks.